Hello, computer.
This is Hello Computer, a series of interviews carried out in 2023, at a time when artificial intelligence appears to be going everywhere all at once. Our next interview is with Dr. Ahmed Elgammal of Rutgers University in the US. He's the founder and director of the university's Art and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory, which focuses on data science and digital humanities.
My name is Ahmed Elgammal. I'm a professor of computer science at Rutgers University in New Jersey, and the founder of a lab that's called the Art and Artificial Intelligence Lab. We have been around for the last 10 years researching at the intersection of art and AI.
A lot's happened in the last 2 months. Has it felt accelerated for you?
Yes, I have been in this area of AI in the last 25 years, and in particular the area of generative AI in the last, let's say, 10 years. And it's progressing in tremendous speeds, thing that I wouldn't have imagined becoming that soon is now here. Like, for example, this text-to-image that dominates the generative AI now. I was working on that like 4 years ago and would imagine that this is something that will come in 10, 15 years. I didn't imagine that it's here now already. It's amazing, the progress of AI.
That does sound accelerated then. So if people were expecting these things in a number of years and they're already with us now, that sounds like it's accelerated for everybody, even the experts who have been following this for some time. You specialize in an area that has the intersection of machines and creativity. Can you tell me a little bit more about your AI art time machine?
All right. So at Rutgers in New Jersey, Rutgers University in New Jersey, I established a lab called the Art and AI Lab about 10 years ago to really investigate this interesting area of intersection between art and AI, out of my passion for art and out of my also passion and career in AI. And we started by looking at how to make AI, how to advance AI by looking at this creativity, creative product and creative processes, how to make first AI look at art and understand art a little bit. Can an AI look at a painting and tell this is a Baroque painting, this is Caravaggio, this is a light dark contrast, can it tell me something about the subject matter? And from here we take it to can it understand all art history, can it understand when new art movement came around, when what relate to what in art history, and from that we went into working on how to generate images and art and music and things like that. Obviously, we're not the only one. I mean, in the last 5 years, there have been tremendous interest in AI area about generative AI in particular, how to make AI creative and how we have been pioneering in this area and we create a lot. 5 years ago, we developed what the media called the first autonomous AI artist. We call it AICAN, AICAN to be accurate. And that artist was basically a generative AI that look at all art history, look at all 500 years of Western art history in particular. And it was actually designed to be creative, not just to emulate what it have seen in art history, but we put it into a creative dilemma. In one hand, it has to follow the rules of aesthetic rules that it learns, and that it just generates random things, wouldn't generate garbage. On the other hand, it has to create its own thing. If it creates another impressionist art or another cubism or another Baroque, but art is going to be banalized. So how it needs to be creative. And it was successful. It really started creating some amazing things compared to what have been around at the time. And that was interesting. We did a Turing test, a visual Turing test, where we showed subject this art and mixed up with art from the latest art fairs like Art Basel and showed that to subject, and somebody could not tell whether this is done by AI or an artist. And that was huge. That was 5 years ago, and that sounds like ages ago now, because things have tremendously progress, and then AI now becoming something that a lot of people use, a lot of artists use, a lot of artists against, a lot of debate now happening about this. People really understand now what it is, and what it is not, and maybe not understanding, but debating that.
Can you describe a visual Turing test?
A Turing test in general is a traditional way that Alan Turing came around with to tell whether a machine is really intelligent or not. And the way it goes is that you are making a conversation with somebody maybe behind the next room, and start the conversation, and you get a response and go on. If you cannot tell whether this conversation is done is with a human or with a machine, then that machine is really intelligent. That was the original version. The visual Turing test is kind of simulating that for images. So basically, we show subject an image and ask them whether this is done is an image of an art done by a human or done by a machine. And if they cannot tell the difference, the machine is really basically we think as creative. Obviously, Turing test is not the only way to test creativity, as test intelligence. There are other ways. We can discuss that in details.
I guess the visual Turing test must have been around for quite a short amount of time. I mean, how long have computers been having a go at creativity?
Well, surprisingly, research in creativity of the machine have been as old as AI itself. So some research in that area have been around for the last 40, 50 years. However, very small number of researchers and scientists have been working in that area, and definitely this has not been noticeable as it is now. There's a big interest now in AI in general and creative AI in particular, but the progress is amazing.
You've said that there are similarities with AI and the invention of photography. Can you explain a little more about that?
A lot of things that are happening now, a lot of the debate that's happening now has parallels when you look at the invention of photography. And looking at that, that really can help us understand and answer many of the questions that are being raised now. So when photography came around in the 19th century, the very definition of art in the early 19th century, according to academia, is basically depicting the world in canvas. Basically, it's the world view and the eyes of the artist depicted on canvas. And then came a machine that you can click a button and can do that for you. You can take your portrait, it can take your landscape. So a debate came around, several debates came around. Is this art? Is this what this will do for artists? Will it take the jobs of artists? Can this be copyrighted? All these issues have been raised, and learning from that conversation is very essential now. So moving forward to 21st century, what's the difference between AI making images and a camera taking photos? Obviously, the mechanism will be different. The photography is mechanical, electronic device, while AI is basically a data processing device. So you can think of AI making art as digesting lots of images it has seen to generate a new image. It doesn't take light, it doesn't have lenses. It's basically digesting data to generate images based on data itself, which is a very different way of looking at those. At the end, this data is a reflection of the world, right? I mean, you're not taking the light rays and through a lens, but you're taking the data of images of people, text about these images, digesting them, and kind of projecting them into your canvas by generating an image at the end. So it's really, there's some parallel here. But I want to focus more about the parallel in terms of answering these questions. Will AI take jobs of artists? What is the copyright issues? All these things can be thought of on from that point of view. So if you like, I can now start discussing the copyright issues or the job issues. So depending on how we want to take this conversation.
Please, no, absolutely. Tell us, where does this leave the artists?
So how AI can affect artists' jobs? First, I want to make sure that we understand some concepts here. Art is made by human. Art is a human creation. AI doesn't create art. AI create images. If you're talking about visual art, AI create images. What makes them art is the artist behind them who created this image using AI. So AI is like the camera, it's a tool. And when you press a button on the camera is not the artist. You are the artist. You are the one who frame it, pose it, and click the button. The same thing in AI. When you're using, for example, text to image tools. And by the way, text to image is only one way of making art using AI. It's not the only way. There are many other ways in the past, many other ways going to come in the future. But these are the most famous one now. When you write this text, you are the one who creating the text to generate the image. So you are the one in charge. You are in control. Yes, the AI here, for the first time, you have a machine or a tool that's co-create with you. It has this element of creativity and add to you, surprise you, give you something new. That's totally new situation. But we have to make clear that the art is created by human and the AI is a tool. But what this tool will do, will it take the jobs of artists? Yes and no. Yes and no. So go back again to the 19th century. Definitely, photography take jobs of some artists. For example, if you are an artist in the 19th century making portraits of families or people, definitely you are no longer needed because camera can do better portraits than you. I mean, not better, but I mean more practical portraits than you. So you are no longer needed, and obviously that changed the course of art history in the 19th century. But we're talking about jobs now in particular. So definitely, AI will take jobs of certain artists. If you are an artist who make illustration, for example, or make photography, definitely your job might be changed to better or worse in the future because depending on how you're going to use these tools yourself or how people who hire you can use these tools, that will be in danger or can be involved depending on how you stand in that. But in other kind of art, if you are an artist who make art to be sold in galleries, and I don't think AI will affect you at all because I think in other way around, your art might be more valuable because if you're a fine art artist, it's the art you are making is about humans for humans. So the art here is every piece of art you look at in a gallery, you get emotional connection to it. You like it because it tells you something that it speaks to you, it affects you emotionally. And these are things that AI might not be good at all. So AI might be good to make you a nice painting to look at put in your wall as a decor. It's a kind of low art or kind of cheap art. Yes, this can be replaced by AI, and it will be replaced by AI. And imagine now the future if you're buying an art from a big store, this art will be made by AI in the process. However, if you go to a gallery and buying expensive art from an artist, you actually buying the art is because it is from an artist. Even if the artist is using AI, that's fine. But I'm buying it because it's made by an artist, and there's a story behind it. It tell me something, and I connect to that. So I think if you are in this category, you're going to be fine. And art has been like that for the last century. You have to remember that art had been moved to be conceptual art in the last century altogether. 100 years ago exactly, Marcel Duchamp made his famous fountain sculpture and came out with this concept of ready-made art. So an artist can really take anything and put it in the pedestal and say, this art, right? And so art has no longer been making a nice painting of a landscape for a long time. If you are still doing that now, that's unfortunately going to be replaced. But art has moved away from that long time ago.
What we're expecting then is a new breed of super artists, are we? You know, the artists who have the innate ability augmented with AI. So what kind of mega art can we expect in the future?
Fortunately, I've been working with many artists in the last couple of years because we were the first to develop a platform for generative AI and invited artists to use it, and have over 50,000 artists been using it in the last few years. It's called Playform, and there we have seen how artists are using it, what kind of artists are using it. So, and we basically discussed this with them, and we talked to them and interviewed them, and we found that the spectrum of how artists use AI is very, very wide. You never imagine how artists will use AI. Just give them the tool and we'll do amazing things with it. So we have seen artists who use it at the ideation phase. Just there are artists who just use AI because you want to have new ideas, and especially AI in the early stages where give you lots of surreal and uncanny kind of images. So if you are really into surrealist affecting your art and looking for this kind of out of the box kind of ideas, AI is really the best tool for that. And then there are artists who really use AI as a productivity tool. Imagine you are an artist and you don't have money to hire assistant, studio assistant, or somebody to make assets for you. AI can be really your studio assistant. So imagine some artists like Andy Warhol who has a whole bunch of artists under him working, creating things for him, right? That's happening. I mean, Jeff Koons and others. But if you are an emerging artist that have the budget, really AI can be that kind of slave artist at work for you and create lots of things. I've seen artists who really have their own style, and I want to create thousands of things fast because you want to use it in a project. And now, instead of spending a whole day doing each one of them in Photoshop, we can just use AI to create thousands of these images in 1 hour. So it really increases your productivity, especially if you are using these assets in other projects. So I have seen artists using AI and you want to create assets for virtual reality environment or for gaming. And again, AI can really accelerate their job a lot. I have seen artists who use AI to create kind of small video clips that they put it in their projects, all sorts of things. So I have seen interesting scenarios where some artists have been totally digital artists for a long time, but AI art make them actually move to become a painter because they like what AI generated, but it was too small in terms of resolution at that early time, and they wanted big, so they went and painted that. Interesting things, and I have seen other way around. I've seen artists who have been sculptured and painters haven't done anything digital. When they did used AI art, they got hooked and started working in digital fashion. So it's totally when we give it to an artist, a real artist, they appreciate it. They appreciate what it can do, and they find very interesting ways to become a super artist using it.
You used a great word there, real artists. So is this AI is going to flush out the real artists in a flood of all of us fake artists? Because of course everybody's using Midjourney to come up with illustrations, but are we saying that there are real artists?
Well, I mean, that's very tough. I mean, art is very wide spectrum. There are very fine art you find in museum and galleries. There are art you buy in IKEA and Walmart. There are art that you buy in the streets. There are art that you see in comic books. There are art that you see in books. There are all the very wide spectrum. So each of these genres of art and have their own artist. I mean, I wouldn't say this is better than others. I mean, the society will decide about that. But AI will affect these in a different ways. So the same happened again when you look back at the 19th century and early 20th century and how photography affected art. Again, if you are a portrait artist at that time, you lost your job, unfortunately. So the same thing will happen now. I mean, there are certain kind of artists will be flushed out not because they are bad artists, because just the social function can be done now with a machine, so nobody will hire you. That's some other is not. So it's not about real artists and not real artists. I wouldn't say that. But on the other hand, photography and again AI made making art accessible for everybody. So look at now, everybody take photos and put it on Instagram, and everybody become just using photography, become some sort of an artist, express themselves, right? AI will push that forward. Now everybody can use some of these tools to generate their images and claim it to be their art, and it is their art, and express themselves. So I wouldn't say real artists and not real artists. Everybody's an artist, but they do need to do in different arts.
That's the positive then, that we can all access our creativity, some more than others. But there are negatives as well, yeah? So the disinformation that uses fake images, the fake Trump photographs that went viral just recently at a time when real events feel very dangerous. And so all of a sudden, photorealistic images are in the media. What's going to happen there?
There are very, very serious issues that we have to talk about in debates. One of them is the fake images and what to do about them. Other things, copyright issues. Other things are artist rights, and there are many ethical issues that we need to address. So let's discuss fakes. What's called deepfakes, and because any image that's generated by AI, you can think of it as a fake. But what's a fake? Basically, it's a fake when you creating it to deceive somebody. That's what becomes a fake. Basically, that's the definition of a fake. So you generated some image of Trump or whatever, and try to pretend it's real. Or you can now do also video. Deepfakes video have been around, and make deep sound, fake sounds, and combine them with the video. So now the possibilities are endless. What to do here? We have to step up for this. The solution is not that hard. The solution has to come from the legislation. Basically, we have to put laws that dictate that if you generate anything with AI, you have to put watermark in it, a visible watermark and a hidden watermark. A visible watermark that will tell anybody who look at this image or video that it is basically generated by AI, so you are not deceiving people, and hidden watermark that cannot be removed. You can verify by other machines that this is also generated by AI. And if you don't do that, if you remove it, then you are under legal consequences because you have the intention of deceiving people. So the solution is very simple, but it has to have laws to put laws in place. And this way, we don't prevent freedom of expression. Anybody can make these images. Anybody can make any image of Trump the way they like. That's fine. That's freedom of expression. But if you wait to out there in social media, and then you are trying to deceive people, and that's where will be legally doing that because you remove the watermark. You didn't put the watermark. That's basically deception, and it's very clear basically what to do. But it's not an AI problem. It's basically a social problem, and the same when you make fake art and try to sell it as a Picasso. That's illegal, right? That's illegal. If you make it for yourself, that's fine. But if you try to sell it to somebody and tell it's Picasso, it's illegal. So you cannot prevent somebody from making their own Picasso. That's fine. But the point when you see people, that's becoming illegal. So it's a social problem.
That is fascinating and a great way to look at things. So are the governments doing enough then? We're saying that we need legislation there. We need some laws to keep this from just running rampant. But do you think the governments are doing enough?
Usually when government intervene, they do the wrong things, unfortunately. I'm not optimistic about government intervening in this. The solution is simple, as I said, but you have to think of it as a social problem, not as a technology problem. If you still think of it this way, we would have do the right thing. But if you start putting limitation about technology or how technology can be developed, then you are doing the wrong thing. I am afraid that government intervention might mean they stop the technology, like what happened in Italy when they stopped ChatGPT. I don't know why, the reason, but this kind of stopping the technology, or the debate now about stopping AI research for 6 months. Oh, that's useless. That's not the problem. The problem is really the social aspect of that, and how the technology is being used by people. Because at the end, the AI as technology is used by people, and people are the one who make crimes, are the one who make illegal things, not the AI. AI is really a tool done by human, made by human, and trained by human, and used by human till now.
But how do we do that then? So how do we get 4 billion internet users to be better humans without any way of... If the governments shouldn't be going in head first, and it should be essential and challenged, how do we, as society, get ourselves together?
That's a hard question. Has a question to answer. I don't know the answer for that. I think make awareness of the problem, and make awareness of what is the real problem. and make distinction between AI and there are a lot of misrepresentation of what's happening in AI, the media and debates, because people are not aware of what the technology can do and what it cannot do, and it's mixed with science fiction and people have all the right to be confused and because it's you read lots of things in the media that might not be correct. So I mean, being knowledgeable about what's happening, the real capabilities of this technology, how it can transform our life to the better or bad, understanding that, because at the end the government is from the people in democracies, and if the people understand this, then the government will understand this. If they don't, then that same misrepresentation will happen at the government level. So what we're doing here in this documentary is really an example of what we should be doing, basically inform other people and discuss and debate and learn.
How will this change our relationship with love? Because people fall in love with art? I mean, is art something that you have a love emotion for? I mean, what's going to happen here?
Love with art or love with AI?
Both or either?
Yes, we fall in love with art. Definitely, that's for a long time. We will fall in love with art. But we realize that art is made by human, right? I mean, so these are made by human. But when I fall in love with art, I usually go fall in love with the actual piece of art, right? Because sometimes I fall in love with some art in the museum that I don't even know it's the artist. I don't relate to the art, but I love it because of its emotional impact and meaning, how it affects me. So when you think about AI, and AI make these products, right? I mean, whether it's an image or a piece of text or music, yes, you can fall in love with what AI is producing. That's totally at the end. It's creative object. You can really fall in love with it, and nothing wrong with that. So it doesn't mean that you fall in love with the AI itself. No, it's just basically the creation touched you, the creation emotionally affected you, and at the end, if you remember that AI didn't create that by itself. At the end, there was a human behind the curtain who created the AI, who fed the AI the data, who pushed the button. There is an artist behind it, so it's just a new medium.
That's a beautiful idea then. And it does mean that we're going to see a lot of opportunities for people to fall in love with art, or to have love for art, or just for a lot more love in the world, perhaps.
If you look now, and if you look 20, 30 years ago, and now you look at social media and Instagram and the web all the time, and you get exposed to images in fraction of a second, like many images. So you can scroll and keep these visual stimulus coming with the eye all the time, and that affects our perception of art. I mean, it becomes very hard to really appreciate art with all that, because it's really becoming that you are used to be exposed to an image in a fraction of a second and move on to the next one and next one and next one. 30, 40 years ago, that's not the case. We didn't have that speed of being exposed to visual media or music or whatever. Visual media in particular is very fast, because in music, at least you have to spend the time to listen to the track. Right? So you can accelerate that a little bit, but you cannot listen to many things in the same time. It's impossible. While in images, you really can scroll very fast and have these visual things coming to, and that affects falling in love with art. You don't see people fall in love with art as before because of that, because it's really hard now for people to have art that they can digest and emotionally affected by, unless you get out of the social media and the internet and mobile and go to actual museum and start really enjoying art the way it's meant to be, on a gallery or a concert or things like that, where really you enjoy art, come to your eyes, go to your brain, and you digest it, affect you emotionally the way it's done. But I'm afraid also the way you are trained in everyday life to absorb art very fast affect that experience. You no longer enjoy the art in a museum the same way you used to a decade ago. So yeah, it's a really very a tricky question. And again, it has nothing to do with AI. AI will actually make it worse because, again, AI will make the production of these images more massive now, even way than before. So before you had the cameras and even cell phone, you can take photos and post them on Instagram. Now they can even create many things that, and now you are moving into the dilemma of or the territory of creating unrealistic things very easily. So we used to see photos that are taken by cameras which are depicting the actual world on image. While in AI, you don't have these limits. You don't have the limit of the physical world. You can really create an image of anything. You can create an image of me and upside down hanging from Eiffel Tower. You can just basically creating all this imaginary scene because you can just write a text from them and create it. So now we'll enter into an era where our eyes will get used to these images that are totally not realistic. It still can be photorealistic, but not realistic coming out of the physical world. That will affect our perception. That will affect how we appreciate art and how we think about art. And I think, because we push people to that very shocking experiences, they tend to not appreciate the typical things around them anymore. And their point of interest become moved ahead now and become now that's expectation. So let's go back to artistry a bit to show an example of that. When something like Cubism came around in the early 20th century, so that was something that happened more than 100 years now. That was too shocking. People didn't like it. Like the first Cubist art by Picasso was The Ladies of Avignon. And that piece that was done in 1907, maybe 5 years even before the first Cubist exhibition. Everybody's shocked by that. Picasso didn't show it to more than his close circle, but people were shocked by this art. And even later, when Cubism art came around between 1910 and 1915 and become popular around a small circle of avant-garde artists and critics, to the public, Cubist art was something very strange. What is that? Big departure. So that's shocking, right? But when you get used to that, it's become very hard to go back and appreciate impressionist art, or it become very hard to appreciate classical art, because you are used to that, and that's where basically we moved on to abstraction and other things like that. So it's very hard to push back people to appreciate other things. Imagine now what will happen in a steroid version of that, where basically people start getting visual perception of these abnormal things and get used to that. Now, when they look at actual photography of the physical world, it becomes very boring for them, right? So now you never like any photography anymore, because photography will become very boring for you. You are used now to the excitement getting out of these uncanny, surreal images created by AI. Who cares about photography anymore? Who cares about painting anymore? That in our museums, it's going to be like outdated things. It's going to be the same way I've been looking at basically pre-Renaissance art in museum or medieval art. Very boring, unfortunately. So that's definitely will affect how we look at in the future.
That is stunning. The whole concept there is stunning. That feels like an existential threat from AI. The idea that we're rewiring our creative brain at this moment and not even know it. It sounds to me that social media plus AI is like we're running around an infinite gallery, and you can't fall in love with the Mona Lisa if you're running past the painting, and you're never stopping to look at the art. You're just seeing it for a split second and then on to the next one. That sounds like a maniac. That doesn't sound like an art fan.
Totally. And this has been around for the last 100 years, but has very accelerated now. Nowadays you go see the Mona Lisa just because it's famous, not because you appreciate it, right? That's the whole thing. You go to the Louvre now. I was in the Louvre like 2 weeks ago, and you can see that like half the crowd at the Louvre are in this room, and all other amazing painting around it by all artists nobody knows about, because all these people now are driven by what's famous. And the same thing was happening in social media. I mean, it doesn't matter what content you put. What matter is, are you influencer or not? I mean, how many followers you have, and that's what matter. And so, I mean, art have been transformed in the last 100 years to be a brand, basically. Unfortunately, I mean, many great artists don't succeed in their career because they are not branded well, because no big galleries take it. But this is another story. But now put this in steroid again with AI and social media, and making the society in general really looking for brands, not looking for actual value, not looking for actual art, but looking for what is the brand, what is the hot thing, what is the trending thing. So really, that really is in the society. So AI will just be a way to accelerate that. Not, I don't see it helping, but this is a social problem. This is the main social issue right now in terms of following trends, following brands, not really following actual creative values.
Is this art as business, art as investment, rather than art for art's sake?
Yes, it has been like that in the last 100 years. Yes, it is. Yeah, very few artists made it. Unfortunately, there are lots of emerging artists in the first 10 years of their career. They cannot succeed. They have to move on to something else. And very few artists made it. Some of them are great. Some of them are not that great, but they are lucky, maybe at the right time, the right place, and get branded. But at the end, it's had been marketing. So yeah.
What's your favorite AI related film?
Yeah, I can answer this kind of question, but I'm not really a good movie watcher. Especially with science fiction, I'm not a big fan of science fiction. I would say my favorite AI movie is Wall-E movie animation. It's just because the emotional element of it, it didn't focus on AI being a scary thing and robots taking over. It just tried to think of the emotional aspect of AI and how we deal with how these machines that have no conscious, can we think of them as having conscious in the future.
It's a beautiful film and a great work of art as well. Subscribe to the Hello Computer channel here on YouTube to hear more interviews with experts as the world comes to terms with thinking machines.